thank you for joining this video. If you're like me, you're starting your sourdough journey. It is the first week of January 2024, and I've decided to take up sourdough baking. So here we are. Step one, we all need a starter. So after reading multiple blogs, watching so many videos, and now I feel like I'm even more confused. I think I've kind of have the idea, but I want to try and go with a no measure kind of way of doing this. I'm going to try and go the direction of having less discard versus having to discard every day. So my goal is to at least be baking once a week. So I think I want to try and build it up. My starter. I don't want to have a starter that's maybe, just here the whole time, which you'd have to discard and discard every day. So here we are. Okay. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to add some flour based on all of the videos, blogs, everything. Anything pretty much works, but they do recommend unbleached flour just because the bleach and all of that can have an effect on your starter and prevent it from actually fermenting. I also read that the einkorn all-purpose flour is really good for feedings as well. It kind of gives it a little boost. So I think I'm going to add just a little bit of that mixed in with the bread flour to get it started, just to kind of give it like a little oomph, since it is going to be a young starter for me, and I want to see if I can try baking within like a week or two. And then I also have some filtered water so we don't get all that junk that comes in through the faucet here in South Texas, especially the chlorine. Okay. All right. So I have all of that. I also have a scale just to kind of get an idea of what I'm adding in right now, but I don't want to be doing any exact measurements. It's just for me to know what I added into my starter. Okay. Little measuring cup, and then I have a little plastic spoon. I'm probably not going to use the spatula side. I'm just going to use this side so I can mix it in good and kind of scrape down the sides a little bit to make sure that my glass jar here stays clean on the sides. Okay, so let's see here. See if I can do this one-handed. All right, that's my doggy out there. As you can see, I still have my decorations up from Christmas. Say hi, Maya. A little German Shepherd. Let me see if I can put you guys kind of like here. Don't have a stand or anything yet, so. All right, let's see what we can do here. So they said for the starter, it needs to be like the consistency of pancake batter. So here we go. I'm gonna start off with, I already zeroed it out on my scale. Let's see here. It should kind of double in size, right? So. Okay, that's about 50 grams of that flour. Let me get some of this einkorn, wheat as nature intended all-purpose flour. So indeed, both of these. This one's organic. This one does not say organic. I thought it was. Let me see. Nope. I think next time I'll get the organic one so that way I'm consistent. Okay. So the acorn, let's see if you can see that, has a little bit more of like a yellow, a little bit of a yellow consistency to it. So this one is a little bit whiter. So anyways, just something I noticed. So I'm going to add a little bit more here. That gives me about 60 grams of flour in here. Okay, a little bit over 60 grams. Let me try and take a little bit out. Oh, there it is, 60. Okay, so if we're at 60, I think we need about 60 grams of water. I'm gonna do a 1-to-1 ratio and slowly build it up. You can do 1-to-2, 1-to-5, I've heard, but since I have a small jar here, I'm just gonna do the 1-to-1 since I'm starting out. It's kind of an experiment here. I feel like experimenting here. So let's get to 120. And this water is just a little bit warm. My water filter has hot and cold water, so I put a little bit of both, and that's just to kind of help jumpstart it because it is winter here, and today is actually a cold day here in South Texas. So my house is a little bit on the cooler side, like in the 60s. So here we go. Slowly pour this till we get to 120. And I went over. Of course I did. That's okay. Let's just add a little bit more flour here. I'm a little busy, buddy. Okay, there we go. So let's mix this up until we get to the consistency of like a pancake batter. Like I said, the measurement is just for my own, so that way I have more of a guide, because I'm hoping to get better at this, so that way when I can help others, they have more of an idea as well. So ideally, I did want to start this with buttermilk or yogurt, but I didn't have that because I did read if you're making your own starter at home, especially if you're not really doing measurements, that if you use cultured buttermilk, it really helps get those cultures and that yeast going in your starter. I didn't have any buttermilk or just plain cultured yogurt in the fridge. So I'm like, you know what? It's a better day than any other day to get started. So like I said, we're kind of starting off here, kind of seeing what we can do. So I just went ahead and started it with water. It'll work anyways as well. If you have caraway seeds in your pantry, they said that there's enzymes in the caraway seeds that also help. So if you want to drop a few of those in your starter to help it get stronger, eventually those caraway seeds are just, it won't really matter the flavor is what I've been reading. They just kind of get incorporated into everything and it doesn't really matter at the end. It's just to kind of give it that boost for your starter. Okay, so right now you can see it's pretty thick. Let me see if I can get, yeah, thicker than pancake batter for sure. And I hear that's kind of like the consistency that you want, like a thick pancake batter. So that seems pretty good to me. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna kind of scrape down the sides here. Let me actually try and get as much as I can in there. I'm gonna use this side and just try and scrape the sides down so that way we see where we're at, because then the next step that we want to do, and I ordered a bigger jar too. I don't know what I'm thinking. Like, I'm gonna make all this starter and be baking every day? Probably not. I'm a little ambitious, but I do want to get a good amount of starter so that way I can also freeze some if I end up messing things up or dehydrate it, right? Because I hear once you get a good starter going that you can dehydrate it, or you can even refrigerate it, so that way you're not having to feed it every day. But anyways, here we are. Okay, so I want to try and build up. I bought another jar, like I said, and I'll probably transfer it here after it starts activating and starting up here. But in the interim, I have my handy dandy rubber bands. And I hear what you're supposed to do is place a rubber band here on your jar to see where you're at, right? So you can kind of keep track if it's growing or not, okay? And what you want to do is put a cap or a cloth or even something like a plastic wrap over it to cover it. You don't want to, I have one of these caps, got a little hole on it. I'm just going to go ahead and lightly cap that just to keep kind of debris and things out. Do not put this near any food that could possibly be molding, or I would probably keep it away from a fruit basket or anything that you have that could possibly grow mold or citrus, because those mold spores can come in here and then your starter will actually start molding, and you do not want that. Okay, so that's what it looks like, and what we want is for it to start getting bubbles inside and for it to look really active. Right now we don't have anything going on because we just mixed it. So, all right. So, best thing is to keep this in a place in like in the 70 degrees Fahrenheit is what they're saying. If it's on the cooler temperatures, it'll take a little longer. So, with that said, like I said earlier, it is winter time here in South Texas. It's in January. Not cold as other parts of the country. I do realize that, but my house is on the cooler side. So what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to set it next to my stove. I cook every day for these starving kiddos. So my kitchen is probably the warmest part of the house. So I'm going to sit this by the stove. And it'll just, some of that heat will radiate. I don't want to set it exactly on the stove or anything. I don't want to cook my starter, right? But I just want to keep it in a warmer spot. Okay, so we'll go ahead and do that, and tomorrow we'll come in and check up on this baby. Remember, this is kind of like a pet, right? You don't have to feed. Some websites will say you have to feed it every day, some don't. Depends on how you're going. Me, I'm going to try and do the not feed every day kind of thing, since this is a young starter. Okay. All right. So we'll keep an eye on our little pet here. I think we'll name this one. We'll have to think of names. Okay. Because we have a couple names, right, buddy? Yeah. And then we'll come back tomorrow and see what we got with this one.
Right next to her.
All right, you guys. Thank you for joining on my new adventure for sourdough baking for 2024. And if you're on the same adventure, then maybe we can learn together. Not perfect, but we'll learn together. Thank you for joining. Bye-bye. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to catch my next video on my starter progress and next sourdough adventures.